Tashidele to everyone, and welcome to the Tibetan Intermediate Lesson 3. In this lesson, we're going to discuss yet another important component of a statement. So the reason why we are discussing the verbs and the subject and object is to construct a sentence with correct components. As we have already discussed in the first lesson that we did, that there are three essential components of a statement in Tibetan. That is the subject, object, and the verb or action word. So it's important to understand each of these aspects of a statement to construct correct or grammatically sensible statements. So that is the reason why we have spent the first three lessons of this particular course, the Tibetan Intermediate Conversational course, on verbs, subject, and object. So today we're going to discuss the other two essential parts or components, the subject and the object. Chepapo, chawe yul. So before we go to the actual lesson on the subject and object, let us begin with the aphorism that we always do. So today's aphorism is Gitu kopang mato tu rangsem mashum. Gitu kopang mato tu rangsem mashum. So this particular aphorism, it says, don't be on cloud nine at good times and don't fall in despair when in bad times. So it can be understood in this way. So it could be understood in two ways. First, when someone is experiencing a good time or a good phase in life, they simply experience it in a way that they forget everything, meaning that they are very much at that time on a certain type of emotional state where they're feeling extremely happy. Not that feeling extremely happy is bad, but not only that, but that sometimes also comes a little bit of arrogance. So when someone is having a good phase of life, when they are at a certain position, where be it financially or be it in any other way, that they are very happy and with certain financial and other form of. So sometimes people, when they reach a certain stage where they are either financially well off or they have certain type of authority, one forgets that this too is not lasting. This too is impermanent, meaning that this too shall change in due time, like the bad times that was once experienced. So this particular aphorism gives an advice. It's an advice. It's to advise someone, saying that yes, definitely, right now you are at a phase of your life where you are happy, where everything is working out for you. But you also have to remember that in this particular phase, you should not be totally absorbed by this prosperity, that you become arrogant and belittle other people for their particular state. So therefore, Kitu Kopang Mato means, Kopang means state. Kopang Toa means to be on a higher state of existence, meaning that you should still be down to earth, humble when you are having a good time. Don't when you are experiencing a good phase of life, don't just uh, don't just go around being arrogant and misusing the resource that was given to you or that you have earned. So one should not be arrogant or on the to think that they are higher than others just because they're at a particular time, a particular phase of life where they are on a good phase. And then similarly, when someone is experiencing a bad time in their lives, one should understand that just like the good times that they have experienced have gone and now the bad times have arrived, this too shall pass and then a different circumstance will arise. So when one is met with a bad time of one's life, one should not feel like, oh, this is the end of everything. Nothing's going to go good. Because in reality, the reality itself is the evidence that everything changes. So therefore, one should not fall in despair and then worry about things that they cannot change. Similar, we have this a very wonderful verse by Shantideva that we have. This verse that says that when one is able to find a solution or one is able to change a particular circumstance for better, one should not waste the time worrying about this, but rather act upon it. And then when one is met with a circumstance where they cannot do anything to change the circumstance for better at the particular moment, there is no use worrying about it. So this particular verse, so therefore, one should not feel like they are the highest, they are the most highest, and they are the most greatest when they are met with the good times in their life. They should still be humble and down to earth. Similarly, one should not feel like everything is at loss when they meet with bad times, because both of these times change. So therefore, this is the advice that this particular aphorism that we have is trying to convey. And it's used for an advice to someone. It's a general advice to everyone, how one should carry themselves. In good times, one should be humble. In bad times, definitely one should be humble. In good times, they should be even more humble. So this is the meaning of this aphorism. Okay, now with this, let us begin our lesson for today. That is on the object and subject. The subject and object. Cheba potang, chawe yul. So the first one. Jishe, general introduction. So I will be reading the Tibetan. I have written the Tibetan text and I will be reading it. And like I said in the previous classes, this is in order to familiarize every one of you with the sound, the pronunciation, and just a general experience of hearing the Tibetan again and again, so that eventually it helps to adapt to speaking Tibetan. Pengu nganchu lop simpa na chawa lalar cheba potang chawe yul ta deba tang lalar cheba potang chawe yul ta mi deba yin. So earlier we studied that some verbs involve subject which is distinct. So some of the verb involve subject which is distinct. Distinct from what? Distinct from the object. So we have already discussed this during the previous class. What we did is that we understood that the transitive verb are the verbs in which the subject is distinct from the other object, and the other object is the distinct object of that particular action, whereas in intransitive it is not distinct. So we have already discussed this in our previous class. So now we're going to study about the subject, chebapo. Okay, chebapo ni chawa kanshi druken nam cheken la ser. So subject is the doer or the accomplisher of an action. So the one that does an action or the one that accomplishes an action. That is the subject. Chebapo la ni de chebo dan cheba ni so. So there are two types of subject. The primary subject, which is chebo, and the secondary subject, which is cheba. Chebo ni, so the primary subject. Chebo ni, chawa chegen ki cheba po zo la ser. Chebo ni, chawa chegen ki cheba po zo la ser. The primary subject is the main subject of a statement. So there are different type of statements that we're going to encounter in Tibetan, mainly three when it comes to subject. There are statements in which there is going to be primary subject, which accomplishes an action. There are going to be statements in which we're only going to state the secondary subject. And then there are going to be statements in which we're going to state both the primary and the secondary subject. So we understand that whenever we're going to use a statement, it's going to be either of these. A statement where you only have a primary subject, a statement where you only have a secondary subject, and a statement where you those particular statement in which we have the secondary subject, it should be understood that the primary subject is inferential in those cases, meaning that it doesn't mean that this primary subject isn't there. It's just that the main focus of that particular statement is the secondary subject. Not only that, the primary subject is not written directly in the statement. So we understand that there are these type of statements, one with the primary subject as the focus, other one in which there is the secondary subject as the focus, and the third one in which we have both the primary as well as the secondary subject. Okay, so the primary subject is the main subject of a statement. So let me just write here. I'll just write here. Sometimes it's always better to write examples. So let me provide an example. So a statement, let me provide an example statement with primary statement. So since Tashi and Tsering are the two main characters, so we just use Tashi. Tashi ki she. So here we see that we have the primary subject, which is Tashi. And then we see that the verb she, spoke, has to do with Tashi. It has to do with Tashi, meaning the one that is speaking is Tashi. And Tashi is the primary subject of this particular verb. Or we can say, 치링키 낭, which means it was offered by Tsiring. So here we see that the primary subject is Tsiring in this type of statement. Okay, so this type of statement has the focus on the primary statement, primary subject. Lasso. So there are two types of subject, primary and secondary. So primary subject, there are two types of primary subject. Semden niso. So niso. There are two types of primary subject, the living primary subject and the non-living primary subject. So when we talk about the primary subject, it could be something that is living, like a person, animal, or it could be something that is non-living, like the wind, the air, like the wind, the fire, the mountain. So, semdeni soyebam soshimbala koge. The living primary subject is a living or alive, something that is living or alive. Perna, teshi, nga, ki, chila, memba. For example, tashi is a living primary subject. I am a living primary subject. Dog is a living primary subject. Cat is a living primary subject. And doctor is a person, so it is a living primary subject. Simde mayimpa ni so mebam soa mebala kogu. Soa mebala kogu. So this choa means to be able to, so this choa is to sustain. We have another one, which is chorwa. We talk about this. One of the 5 aggregates. We have feelings. So that is chorwa, and that is chan or chorwa. But this is cho, which means to sustain. So something that is living or sustaining is a living primary subject, and something, the non-living primary subject, is a non-living or inanimate. Something that cannot move or cannot sustain, is not living, is a non-living primary subject. For example, we have penna, lung, me, go, ja, cho. For example, we have wind, fire, door, sound, and lake. So all of these are non-living. Lasso. So a living as well as a non-living can do actions. For example, we have the fire. The fire can burn, right? The fire can burn, and then we have the door. The door can shut open or shut close, and then we have sound. The sound can propagate. Da chakba. So. So soy nyanam so. The lake is sustaining the fish. So we see things like this. We have example like this. The dog running kyukba. So we see that in these type of example, we see that both. So this is animate, and here we have the non-living so, which is non-living subject. but still does an action. So non-living, primary subject. Now secondary subject, cheba. Cheba ni, cheba po zowo tang jewe, yenla, yingla. So yenla means parts, a minor part or a part. Yingla also means a minor part or a part. So secondary subject is a minor part related to the main subject. So it could be something like a tool that the main subject, Chebo, which is the main subject or the primary subject, if we understand it as Chebo. If it's the Chebo, it's the primary subject. If it's Chebo and Chebo are same. Chebo, subject, Zo, main. Chebo, primary subject. So the main subject. So it could be a tool that the main subject or the primary subject uses to execute an action. Or it could be a part, a body part. For example, we have hands, lakpa, kangba. All of these are part of a person who is doing something. Or it could be a part of a person, which is primary subject. So, and then sometimes we have, it need not only be a part of a living. For example, we have nima. Nima means the sun, and the sun is inanimate or non-living. And the sun rays, nime höser. Nime höser. Höser is the rays of sun, so a part of a sun. But the primary subject is not a living. So even a non-living can have parts. So pen chebaponi chebani chebapo zowo tang jewe yenla ningla. Secondary subject is a minor part related to the main subject, the primary subject. Perna shinken ki shin jetse. So when the lumberjack cuts down the tree, jueche tari teni chebain. The axe is the secondary subject that cuts the tree. And here we see that the axe is, here the axe functions as the tool. It functions as the tool to cut down a particular, to cut down the tree. So we understand that a tool or a minor part of the main subject, like the hand, the feet, or any other body parts, could be understood as the secondary subject. So let me give you an example for a statement in which so I think this will be a statement in which you have both the primary and secondary subject. So 这是给的嘞新解脱。So Tashi cut down a tree using his axe. So Tashi cut down a tree with his axe. So here we have the action. So the main chawa action is 解吧 解 and 解波 the main primary subject is 这是 and we have 解吧 so let me just in order to remind everyone about the character reading, let me just do some character reading here. So we have tare satatata ratengborre tare. So chawa by the cha wa chawa is che pacha the che And chepo, the action is to cut down. Chepo, which is the primary subject, is zhe. So po ka rata tra sha kyugu shi sa shi zhe. And then we have chepa, payata cha zhengbo che ta che pa chepa, which is tere. So here the action is cut down. The primary subject is tashi, and the secondary subject is the X. And so here we see that this is the type of statement in which you have both the primary and the secondary subject. So tashi is the one that is cutting it. So the action is, so we can also write it in this way. So action is jiepa. Tashi is jiepapo. So jiepapo. And 30 is jueche, the one that is used for cutting down. So jiepa, jiepapo, and jueche. Jiepapo meaning the one that is cutting down, the one that is the main, the one that is the main action of cutting down the tree, and the main subject of cutting down the tree. And jueche is either the tool or the secondary subject by which the tree was cut down. So jieba, action of cutting down. Juepapo, the one who has cut down the tree, and jueche, the one with which you cut down the tree. And yes, so we understand that there are these type of statement in which we have both the secondary and the primary subject. So when the lumberjack cuts down the tree, the axe is the secondary subject that cuts the tree. So the tool at this particular example. Lasso. So kansa tangbo. Kamsan la. So now we have a new way of greeting. So instead of tashidele, you can definitely use tashidele. Like I said, this is one of my favorite greetings, saying tashidele. That is wishing prosperity and a good health, that is both physical and mental health to someone, which is a very good way of greeting someone. And we can also greet someone by saying kamsang, which means I wish good health upon you. Kamsang tsiringla, I wish good health upon you, tsiringla. Kamsang tashila, kira debo yinbe. So be is more colloquial particle here. It's to ask someone. We have been dealing with the particle which was either tam, nam. In this case, it will be nam. Che yin nam, che yue tam, dukkam. So this is the particle that is used for interrogative cases, but in a more colloquial, in a more spoken language, we also use this particle be. So kira debo yin be. La nga debo yin. Gedin che. So also see that now, in contrast, so those who have joined me from the previous course of the basic conversation, you'll see that the sentences are now becoming more complex. The sentences are becoming longer and more complex. This is because now we are bringing more information into a particular statement. Sorry, not sentence, statement. In a statement, we're trying to bring in more information. So the statements are going to be longer. And we're going to add more information, or we're going to add more ways of saying something. Not only saying, "Kena debo yimbe, nga debo yin." This is one way of doing conversation where you say, are you fine? Yes, I'm fine. Are you fine? Yes, I'm fine. So instead of how are you, we can just say like, oh, just by looking at you, I can see that you're looking very healthy. So there should be a way to say these things. So here we have done this. 这些了说不对面对不当，好可以读，好可以读。庭上说不的中的压过，最近也不知道啦，我得不赢。So very good way to answer it by saying thank you, because someone has taken the time to ask how we are doing. So we thank them. So being polite. 这些了说不定，这些了说不定面，对不当好可以读。So 庭上说不中的也不最近也不知道。So we add few information instead of just saying, how are you? Now we're trying to change the way of saying it. So we're saying, yes, I'm doing well. Thank you. So there is a thank you here. So I can know just by looking at Tashila's physique that you are doing well, or that Tashila, you are doing well. It seems like you are doing good physical training these days. So instead of just simply telling, oh, how are you? Yes, I'm fine. Oh, how are you? We just say, oh, just by looking at you, I can see that you have a good physique these days. And that must mean that you are doing physical training, or you're doing workouts. So we understand this particular, we have this particular understanding where we just, in a way, what we do is that we just we're also asking inferentially, we're also asking someone, not directly, but in a way, how they're doing, but then also forwarding a comment by saying that they might be good because they're looking very good physically. And so if the other person is feeling good, then they will agree. But if they disagree, then they'll say, oh, it might seem that physically I'm good, but this and this, I'm not doing well in that kind of way. But then that is a different case. But you see that now we have, not only do we have like the usual way of saying, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine too. We're trying to make things more interesting with more information. That's a polite way of saying yes. 他确定了多拿多张，多张 means a little. 他确定了多拿多张钱那么多，容我们读。人他确定了多拿多张钱那么多，容我们读。Yes, I am paying attention to my health a little these days. It doesn't feel right otherwise, meaning that I feel that if I don't take good care of myself physically, I don't feel well, or it doesn't feel right. Or currently I may not feel anything, but in the future it may arise some problem for me in health wise. So 人他确定了同样多挣钱那么多，容我们读。Lasso. So this thing, oh, okay. So lasso, normally when you say, oh, okay, we have that particular stretch of the sound. So you just bring that same thing here. Lasso. So making it a little softer, and then you have that particular stretch here. So instead of normally when you say lasso, which is very bold sound, like affirming something, confirming something, agreeing with something. Here you just make it a little softer. You go lasso. So sometimes even with the usage of the different tone, we understand what particular thing might mean. For example, we have this phrase "tashitele," which is a good thing actually. Tashitele. It's a very good greeting. But then by the tone, one can understand what the other person is trying to say. They can say, 这是得了的. Which means that this incident, which means that this particular issue, this particular news that we have received is prosperous. Meaning here tashitele just means prosperous here. So if we say which means if I say it with this tone, it means that, oh, it's a good news. It's a very prosperous news, auspicious news. If I say it's the same phrase, but now it means that your work it's utterly useless. But the change comes from the tone, as you see. And then we can also use this. So this is also very, this is also applicable to referring to a person. We can say, which means this person is a wasteful person, a useless person. But you can see that just by the tone, that the meaning changes. And it does so quite drastically in Tibetan language. More so in the central part, because they have more variation of sound. Whereas in the eastern part, like from where I am, nearly everything sounds very bold and straightforward. You don't have a particular way of making things sound more softer, you know? It's like straightforward, like we say. We might be saying to each other like demo, and then we may say taso, like a elder would say to a child like taso, but it means eat. But you can see that, and the entire tone will be like this. So la so la so. Thari nge thep songha ne thep nga nyo ba yin. La so la so. Thari nge thep songha ne thep nga nyo ba yin. Oh, okay. I bought 5 books from the bookstore today. So thep songha is bookstore. La. So it says oh, like it's a polite way of acknowledging oh. Thep nga te changma tung thep repe. So pe, we're using pe here. So making it seem more of a spoken language. La. Thep nga te changma tung thep repe. Oh, are all of those storybooks? Are all of those storybooks? La mare. Tenam tung thep ni thang. Lob thep chi. Thadung peri thep ni yu. La mare. Tenam tung thep ni thang. Lob thep chi. Thadung peri thep ni yu. So la mare is a polite way of saying no. We can directly say mare, or we can say la mare. There are 2 storybooks, 1 textbook, and even 2 pictures. It means picture or sketch or picture. Lasso. Now you can see the difference. Here, when I'm saying lasso, it's a more bold sound. Lasso. Before it was lasso, lasso. Here it's lasso. So when you try to pronounce this, you shouldn't do it with bold sound. It becomes lasso, lasso. That becomes very mechanical. It doesn't feel like a person is speaking. So try to make it sound with more of that stretching of the sound. Lasso, lasso. Instead of using the usual bold sound like lasso. Tena. Jungtep ki ming la khaan ret. So normally we also use the particle come, but today we have instead used the particle pe, and so we are sticking to that practice here. Lasso. Tena. Jungtep ki ming la khaan ret. Or you can directly say khaan retam, but we're using tuk here. Lasso. Tena, Tungtep ki mila karetu. Okay, then what are the names of the storybook? La. Ripon chal trota, doi senke kadamba sheva te ni retu. La. Ripon chal trota, de senke sheva te ni retu. Yes, there are two books called. Called comes from this particular word, sheba, which means called. The stone lion opens its mouth, and the rabbit and the alarming noise. Okay, so in this exchange, we see certain usage of subject. For example, nge tep songkha ne tep nga nye bai. Here we see that nge, which is nga is the primary subject, and nye is to buy. So here we have used the primary subject. Okay, so now we have this table in which we have some verb. So each class we're going to introduce some verb so that your vocabulary, that your vault of words will be richer after each lesson. So tato, present, past, future, and imperative. So, which means to make. Present, sorry, it's make in present. So, made. So, will make. So, to command someone to make. Kangba de so, make this house. So, king, which is king, which is ging, which means fill, present tense. Kang, filled. Kang, will fill. Kongshik or kong. Kong, which is to fill, to make someone, to ask someone to fill, or to command someone to fill. Je sais. Je said. Je will say. Je commanding someone to say. Tang, open mouth or eyes, to open the mouth or eyes wider. Tang, opened. Tang, will open. Dong, commanding to open. Kadong. So this is also something that is so what I have noticed in the past few years that I have been learning the grammar and comparing many of the words that I have been hearing that were being used in by the people from my village. So in our dialect, we have a lot of imperative words. Kalaso, kadong, which means when a parent is feeding their child, they'll say takadong kadong, which means open your mouth. So I've also noticed that when it comes to the Eastern Tibetan dialect, especially from the Kham region, a lot of imperative terms are being used in daily conversation. Okay, dep, which means to hit something on the ground, to slam or hit something on the ground. Dap, past tense. Dap, will hit. Dop, commanding to hit. Nun, to press a button or to press something down. Nen, pressed. Nen, will press. Nun, asking someone to press or commanding someone to press. Yuk, run. Yuk, ran. Yuk, will run. Yuk, telling someone yuk, to run, telling someone to run from here. So jun, 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 which is to arrive. Chun, chun will arrive, and chun will arrive, and chun to arrive. So chun and chun. Then nyel, to lie down or to sleep. Nyel, lied down or slept. Nyel will lie down or will sleep. Nyul, commanding someone to sleep or requesting someone to sleep, depending. So these are the verb for today's lesson. Now we go to the object. 자외유. Object. 자외유니. 자와 제발 페누 담 포규당 굴그 제세 율라 고그. Object is the target of an action done, which does harm or benefit or initiates motion of the object. So it may move the object, or it may cause some harm, or it may do some benefit to the object or the target of the action. Perna, kala se tabu joba kapsu, sachani kala te chavi yulins. For example, when we say I, he, she, it, they ate food, food is the one being eaten. And so food, it, which is the food, is the object of that particular action. So when we say I ate food, the object of the action of eating is the food. So object sacha. So another thing that you have noticed that when it comes to object, we use cha, sacha. So sacha. And the one when we talk about the when we talk about the subject, we say sache. So che, we use che for we've used che for subject, cha for object. So let us go to this example that we have written. Where is it? Yes, 这是给的嘞，姓che. And the object, the one that is being cut, is shing. So chaveyu. Chaveyu. Shing. And this becomes checha. So cha means we use cha for the object and we use che for the subject. So when it's the secondary subject, we use che. When it's the primary subject, we use ba, bo. So che ba bo, che che, che cha. And the action is che. And something that you'll also notice, so this will be discussed later, gender sign, during the gender sign, is that when it comes to the subject, when it comes to the subject, like 绝报补 and 接茶, we see that the verb that we are using here is present tense. And when it's with the object, it is the future tense. And it has to do with the concept of object of self and object of other. So object of self and other object, which we will discuss during the gender sign. So yes, now we are going to discuss 名词 or name. Why is it important? Because the subject and object is a 名词, a name. Name here means the naming word, meaning the name of an object. So 名词니 오보 강시 처음부터 차외 타니라 고그. The name is a term that represents an object. And a name is a term that is used in order to represent an object. So 타니 시라고그. So we see that the name of different objects, for example, we have chokse, which is table, we have chu, which is water, we have ri, which is mountain. All of these are name. or 名词. And an object and a subject could either be both of them are name. So 名词了你的原名的当名. So there are two types of name, actual name and designated name. Okay. 原名呢我不给你让村本切被名村本切被名词. The actual name is a name that represents the actual object, meaning that the name represents the object of which the name is. Now, this seems like it seems like a confusing concept because one must say that, oh, what do you mean? Every name represents the object, but now the concept of actual object comes here, meaning that it is not a name given to an object on the basis of its similar characteristic to something else, but the very object itself. We're not using any sort of adjective or sorry, we're not using any sort of name here, which may be a designated name, may be a name that is given to something on the basis of its characteristic that is similar to something else, which we will discuss after this, but the name that actually represents the object. Now, this will be clearer when I explain the designated name. Right now, it's quite confusing because we may say, oh, what are you saying? Whenever it's a name, it should represent that very thing. Otherwise, why would we even call that thing with that name? And that is true. But then the concept of actual and designated name should be there to clarify this. So I will do so. So for the actual name, pena, me, ri, zamni, mingci, tep. For example, we have the fire, mountain, the world, name, and book. All of these are name which represent the very thing. When we say me, it represents the fire. When we say ri, it represents the mountain. When we say zamni, it represents the world. When we say mingci, it represents the name. And when we say book, tep, it represents the book. It is not because of a similar characteristic to something. It is the name that was given to this particular object. But now we have something else called the designated name, 灯命. 灯命呢，我不可是了，别当用天国呢大本名词. So designated name is a name designated to an object based on a reason. It could be because of some reason, or it could be because as an example, meaning that it could have a particular characteristic that is quite resembling, or a characteristic that is same for the object that is being designated and the object which is the actual object. So with example, it will be clearer. For example, we have penna tsiring. Now we have the name tsiring, which means long life. We designate this name to a person, but it doesn't mean that the person will have a long life. It's just a name that is designated to them. And then the second one is the designating name senge, which means lion, to a dog. So for example, one might have a dog which has very thick coat of fur, like hair, sorry. They may have a very thick hair. And especially they might have a lot of hair, a lot of facial hair, a very long facial hair that might resemble the mane that okay. Are you able to hear me? Am I audible? Very sorry for this. Am I audible? Are you able to hear me? Lasso. Okay. So let us. Okay. So yes. Okay. So I'm audible, right? Am I audible? Lasso. Okay. Very sorry for this. So the designated name, for example, lasso. So the designated name, for example, like Singe for a dog, because it has a lot of long hair that resembles the mane of a lion. So we may just call it Singe, or because of the white color, it may resemble the snow lion. So we call it Singe to a dog. But that's a designated name. It doesn't mean that the dog is a lion. It's because of a similar characteristic the dog has that we designate it as Singe. Then Nima Namke Meto Tawa. So designating the name gem of the sky to the sun. Because it shines and it's in the sky, that's the reason we have that synonymic, like a name given to the sun. But it's not an actual gem up there. Then now this is something that we use as a nickname. So so because someone has a big head, to nickname them or to call someone big head because they have a big head. So that's also designated. But this designation, it doesn't mean that that person is a big head. It just means that that person has a big head. So we just call that nickname to the person. So it doesn't, a big head should be a head. It shouldn't be a person. So you see that it's a designated name. To nickname a kind person a bodhisattva. Misem sambula chongju semba takwa. So to designate a kind person as bodhisattva, that is also a designated name. It's a name that is designated, meaning that the person, definitely a kind person could be a bodhisattva. But then a kind person may not be a bodhisattva. Who knows? But just to designate and to give a name bodhisattva is a designated name. Now we understand the difference between the designated name and the actual name. Designated name is something that is just given to someone on the basis of a reason or on the basis of a similar characteristic. And the second one, the first one, which is the actual name, represents that very thing. It represents that very thing, the very object. So that is the difference between the actual name and the designated name. And an object or a subject could either be a designated or it could be an actual name. So this is name. Okay, so Sening. 这是的嘞，这是啦，根本能给爬上铺，谁去读？Okay，这是啦，根本能给爬上铺，谁去读？The eldest calls Tashila the son of a good father. So this is because someone is either has a is a well-mannered, has particular characteristic that could be understood as a well-mannered person. Lare changme ngala sim gawe sik pepare. So sim gawe sik means words that make someone happy, a word that is used to make someone happy. Per means to say or to call. So lare, which is a polite way of saying yes. Changme ngala sim gawe sik pepare. Everyone is saying things to make me happy. Kasa nye zhe laki nang gotem tu kishi yobar riksong. So rik is rik means to see. So rikpa means to see or to saw. Here it is see because it is because we understand by the spelling we may not understand, but we understand it because we have used the time of action as yesterday. Like we discussed in the first we discussed it in the previous class. We said that sometimes the action may have same spelling in all the tenses. But the defining characteristic, the character may determine whether it's a present, past, or future, or imperative case, sometimes might be the time of action and the companion word. So here we see that even the spelling may not be the factor to determine the tense, but the time of action is. So yesterday. So 해상에 뜻이라기 고템. 고템 means doorstep. 고템도 키시요 버릭송. So yesterday I saw a dog at your at Tashila's. So this is Tashila's doorstep. Okay, so lare he ngatsu nangi kisarpa singtu re. So now we see that we have used a designated name. So we also have the actual name ki. So yes, it is our new dog Singtru. Sing, which is the short form of Senge, which is lion. Truk, which is the word for cub or child or kid. So Singtru means lion's cub. So it is called a lion's cub because of certain physical feature. Yes, it is our new dog Singtru. Okay, now here we have a more casual form of speaking. So now we're going from polite to more casual because it's between two friends. So we start by 喂这是. So 喂, like 喂 is hey. It's no longer hello. It's hey. Or oi. Well, you say oi. Listen to me. Or hey. 喂这是. Hey, Tashi. So we're calling to Tashi. Come here fast. Ah, now we no longer have la. We are using ah because it's more casual conversation. Ah, 가르쳐서. We're no longer saying 가르나서. We're saying 가르쳐서. 표현치. So ah, 가르쳐서. 표현치. So you can see the difference between the tone also. When we were doing the conversation in more polite way, it was more softer. There was more stretch of the sound. It seemed like we're taking our times saying each word. But now when we go to more casual way of speaking, the tone are more bold. The tone, the sound is shorter. Ah, 가르쳐서. 표현치. Tibetan. Look, Big Head Tundrup is returning home. Ale. Now no longer saying lasso. It's ale. Redu. Ngeni. Gum and dum are same, which means in front or near. So, ale. Redu. Ngeni dum latro. Oh, yes, it is. Let us both go to him. Now Tashin saying, Why Tundru? Why is like, hey Tundru, why Tundru? K, no longer saying K. K is more polite way of saying you. I think we have here, we have Kazan Tashila. No, so we had examples for K, which is more polite and respectful way of saying you. Tata kabar droyayin. Droya is now drogihin instead of he, which is a particle. Droyi, sorry, which is a particle. We say droya, which is a spoken language particle. So tata kabar droyayin. Nga nang la loyayin. I am returning to my home. So sometimes you can say nga nang la loyayin. Ale. Instead of la, so we have ale. Ale. Teina sanyi lobtar tuyong, which means, oh, okay. In that case, see you tomorrow at the school. Ale. Teina sanyi lobtar tuyong. Hoya. Instead of la, so we have hoya in more casual setting. Demo means be well. So you can see the difference between both of these type of conversation. One is casual, where the sound are more shorter and tone are more bolder. Whereas when we are trying to speak politely, the sound are more softer, sounds are more stretched. Okay, now we are understanding minsup or pronoun. So 강사 당부 first person, 강사 이바 second person pronoun, 강사 순바 당 현다 third person and other pronouns. Okay, nga I, ng I in a more. It's a way. It's something that is used by someone who is in a higher position. Ng, like a king or someone that is higher. Ng I. Ngarang myself. Hu I. But now this is in a more humble manner, where you say it in a more humble manner, where you give respect to the person that you are using it towards. Hu ngerang myself. Ngurang myself or I. It could be understood as myself or I. Actually, it's somewhat better to use I. So it may also have a meaning of myself. And then in some cases, it may also mean us or our. It may mean, sorry, it means, in some cases, it means our. But it also means I. If we say it means I am a timid person. Te is a humilific, meaning that by using this word, you are being very humble, and then what you're doing is that you're giving a great respect towards the person that you are speaking to. So te, it's like a very down-to-earth way of saying I. Ni, I as self. Ta is self. Ke is respectful way of saying you. Kerang, yourself, respectful way. Ke, you, in a more casual way. Keto, you, plural. Kerang, yourself. Keja, you, plural. Keni, you, self. Yourself or you, self. Now the third person. Kongso, them. Ko, he. Kong, he or she, honorifics. When you want to use it as an honorific. For example, we say lama kong, gyabo kong, la kong. And mo is for she. Mo kang to chen song. Where did she went? Korang, him. Kongrang, him or her, honorifics. Morang, herself. Kong ni, him or herself. Koto, de. Then we have, for the first person, we have ko, which means I. Ngato, we or us, plural. Daso, we all or us all. Kocha, we or us. Ngecha, we or us. Ngeni, we both or us both. He, that. The, this or the. Hecho, those. Ditso, these. So these are all different pronouns. These are pronouns for first person, second person, and third person and other. Lasso. Sitting. Tashila. Kasangi keraki pomo drama. Lopta trotu jelchung. Hachang kasang potang. Gemba la kuzi chenpotu. Mora. Pe shika sangpo redo. Okay, so we see that the sentences are now quite longer. So, tashila. Kasangi keranki pomo drama. And also observe the difference between the casual way of speaking and this particular way of speaking more politely. Teshila, in the tone and the sound. Kasa nge keranki pomo drama. Lobta trotu jechung. Jelchung. Hajang kasang bodan gembala. Puzi chenpo du. Moran be shika sangbo redu. So, Teshila, yesterday I met your daughter Dolma on her way to school. She is very frank and very respectful to elders. She is a very well-mannered child, or she is very well-mannered. So let us take this off. So she is very well-mannered. So she is very well-mannered. So we see that we have used the pronoun mo here in place of Dolma, and Dolma is a designated name. It doesn't mean the actual Tara, but someone who has been bestowed or who has been given the name designated, who has been designated a name Tara or Dolma. And Tashi and Sring, both of them are designated name. La Katinche, La Rela, Morani, Mitshamala Kasambotang, Me Genlaki, Morani, Lobtro Guntang, Tumbu Yure Song Song, La Katinche, La Rela, Morani, Mitshamala Kasambotang, Me Genlaki, Morani, Lobtro Guntang, Tumbu Yure Song Song. Thank you very much. Yes, she is frank to everyone, and her teacher told me that she is also very friendly with all her classmates. So we have used mo here, which is a pronoun, she. Me is possessive, her. Me is possessive, nge, me. La, hajang ya wore. Zhi rang tang, dao ni ki, na la koryu sangbo shi junbe re. La, hajang ya wore. Zhi rang tang dao ni ki, na la koryu sangbo shi junbe re. That is very good. Teshila and your spouse, Dao means spouse, must have created a very good atmosphere at house or home. So yeah, let me change this to home. So that is very good. Teshila and your spouse must have created a very good atmosphere at home. Now we have a phrase here that we have already used, which we have used in the previous dialogue. And we have Kangzha Chitra or Chitra Kangzha or Kangzha Chitra. So La Kangnu Chinnu ki Kangzha Chitra Hong Tab Cheki Yu. La Kangnu Chinnu ki Kangzha Chitra Hong Tab Cheki Yu. Yes, we are doing our best to provide the best that we can. So Kangzha Chitra means best. It means best. The phrase means best. Kangnu Chinnu means best, doing our best, and Kangzha Chitra is best in quality. So the difference between this and this best is when we say Kangnu Chinnu, it talks about best of our ability to do something. When we say Kangzha Chitra, it means best quality of something, the best of something. So La Kangnu Chinnu ki Kangzha Chitra Hong Tab Chekin Yu. Zhi La Tatar Tuzu Kombar Dukam. Zhi La Tatar Tuzu Kombar Dukam. Zhi La Tatar Tuzu Kombar Dukam. La Ngala Tuzu Kombar Yu. Song Tang. So please tell. Instead of saying Kare Chesong, we're saying Song Tang, which is what is it? Please tell me, what is it? So, Tashila, do you have some time? Yes, I have time. Please tell me. What is it? So, Tena, ngeni cha tong to draw. Tena, ngeni cha tong to draw. In that case, let us both go and have a tea. Lade. Okay, saying okay in a polite manner. Tundrupki. Sikja chongkang la drona kangja tu. Lade. Tundrupki. Sikja chongkang la drona kangja tu. Okay, how about going to Tundrup's cafe? Sikja chongkang. Sikja means coffee. Chongkang means shop, coffee shop or a cafe. Lade. Tundrupki. Sikja chongkang la drona kangja tu. Lade. Tundrup la kong ma jewar. Yun rin song. Shor la kong la jil kire. Shor la kong yang jil kire. Lade. Tundrup la kong ma jewar yun rin song. Shor la kong yang jil kire. Shor means at the same time or with that or beside so something that happens when one is doing some main work. So something that happens as a byproduct or something that is less important. Shor. For example, we can say Tom drove shor la. Tom drove shor la. So on the way of going to the market, I'll also buy a book. Okay, it has been a long time since the last I met Tundrupla himself. At the same time, we can meet him. So we're not going there particularly to meet Tundrupla, but we're going there and at the same time, we can also meet him. So this is the secondary thing. It's not the main priority. Lade, Teteshin. So a very good phrase here, Teteshin, which we have already talked about, is a phrase that means let it be that way, or let us do that exactly. So yes, let it be that way. Lasso. Tangini draw. Lasso. Tangini draw. Let it. Okay. Okay, let us both go. Okay. So we see that in this we have used some pronoun kong, which is a respectful way of saying him. And then we have used ngeni, which means us both. Te is that. Nga, I. So yes, so these are the pronouns that we have used in this dialogue. Lasso. And for example, we have introduced few pronouns here. So those who are interested can make sentences on these things. Okay, so the new words from today's lesson. Chepapo, subject. Chepo, primary subject. Chepa, secondary subject. Nguming, actual name. Tangming, designated name. Ningla, minor part, like parts of the body of a person or parts of tree, part of a building. Ningla. Kuzi, respect. Shika, nature. Sikcha, coffee. Sikcha Chongkang, cafe. So these are the new words. So along with the assignments, if you're able to make sentences also, I would like to ask everyone, request everyone, actually, I would like to request everyone to make sentences and send it in the group or directly to me. And I will give you feedback accordingly. And then this could go into your vault of words that you have already accumulated. It will enrich not only your vault of words, sometimes it might also help understanding the usage in a particular statement. We might know the meaning, but then we might not know exactly how to use it in a statement. So for that reason, I request everyone most humbly to make statements for each of these words that are provided here. In each class we provide, I think 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So almost 10. May or may not be 10 every time, but most of the lessons we have provided 10. So each lesson, if one is able to learn 10, so one is capable of learning a lot of words by the end of the lesson. Lasso. So now we have the two idioms of the lesson. The first one, 争议那我缺些，争议那我缺些，争议那我缺些, which means to speak dharma to the wolf's ear. And this idiom, what it means is that, so this reference comes from an old tale, Tibetan folk tale, with the same title. It's an old Tibetan folk tale known as Chenki Nawa Chöshe. So in this story, a hermit tries. So in this story, what happens is the wolf. He is actually chasing behind a herd of sheep, and as he is chasing them from afar, he sees the herd of sheep going towards the other side of the mountain. And so he chases the sheep, the herd of sheep. And as he is chasing them from afar, what happens is that there is a hermit there who lives there in that place, who has been practicing for many years. So he instantly rises up from his meditational absorption and then appears in front of the wolf and then stops him. And then he starts telling the wolf about the teachings. So he starts teaching the wolf about the law of causality and saying that if you do good deeds, you will have happiness. If you do unwholesome, non-virtuous deed, you'll have suffering. And he was telling all of these things. But at that time, the wolf had his entire attention towards the herd of sheep who was now almost making it to the other side of the mountain. If the sheep would have made it to the other side of the mountain, he would not have been able to eat them. And so what happened is that even though the hermit was teaching him a golden nectar-like teaching, but the wolf stands up and he promises to the hermit, he says, he will come to receive this teaching some other day, and then runs off to catch the sheep. So what this idiom means is uses is the similar characteristic that sometimes we may encounter people to whom we are providing them teachings and advice which are invaluable, advice, but these people, because of their inability to prioritize this teaching or advice as an important thing in their life, they would say, okay, let's talk about something else. We will talk about these later, Or they would say, what are you saying? I'm just too young to worry about these things. You go do these things. You are old person. You do these things. Something like this, like a youngster might say. So to those people that are brushing off the people who are giving them good advice, very invaluable advice, these people are referred, the things referred to as to speak dharma to the wolf's ears. To give them advices like to speak dharma to the wolf's ears, because the wolf will not listen to the teaching of the hermit. Similarly, this person, even though it may seem that they are sitting there listening to it, their entire attention or priority is something else. So therefore, similarly, to use this idioms towards a person indicates that it is useless to tell that person anything good. Okay, for example, Pame kalop lamdön nawate, jöngi nawa chöshe tarchena rung ayong. How is it proper if the guidance and instructions offered by parents by the parents. By parents becomes like to speak dharma to the wolf's ear. If you don't listen to your parents' teaching, very precious teaching, would it be correct and proper to act like speaking dharma to the wolf's ear by not listening to that? So here it is someone is advising a younger person and telling them that they should properly listen to the guidance and instruction offered by their parents. Dollar pincher. This is to benefit the sentient beings. It's actually though the actual meaning of the statement itself isn't a bad thing. Actually, it's a very good thing. But this is used in order to criticize someone for their poor job or work in this particular usage. It doesn't mean that the very phrase that you saw, the very line you saw is criticizing someone. It tells us that even though it is a good thing, but in this usage, it is being used in order to criticize someone for their poor job or work. It is to indicate that one has done a very poor work. The term uses the characteristic of the original meaning of being selfless. So benefiting the sentient being means one is being selfless and with altruistic mind. But they take this characteristic and turn the meaning into benefiting no one. So not benefiting anyone, meaning a work that benefits no one. You're doing this work as if it doesn't benefit you. Like doing a community service, not because one desires to benefit others, but to serve in order to repent for one's wrongdoing, because someone was commanded to repent for what they have done. So something that has been done without any desire to do it. So this is what the meaning of this idiom is. So, lega tsangma drola penche chena, namyang tunda chemo, ruptubki mare. If you do everything like to benefit the sentient being, if you do every work, every job like to benefit the sentient being, meaning that work that is without effort to do it poorly, then you'll never accomplish great things. So the actual phrase is a good thing, but here we have used it in a way that it criticizes someone. Okay, so this is it for today's lesson. I might have time for just one question. If someone have a question, I can take just one question today. So does anyone have any question regarding today's lesson? Lasso. So it seems that there aren't any questions. In that case, we most auspiciously end today's lesson here. So thank you very much for joining in today. And I hope that this lesson was as beneficial to you as it was to me. And I wish everyone a good morning, evening, afternoon, or night, depending on where they are. So tashitele, and I will see every one of you for the next class. Lasso tachenang.